Hey everyone, welcome back. We are in chapter 21, slide 12. We've already talked about the basic components of blood and focused on erythrocytes and different types of anemia, where we lack oxygen because there's irregularities with red blood cells. At least that's one potential type of anemia. 3 types that we went over. Here we're going to go over leukocytes and platelets. Leukocytes, if you recall, are those immune cells. When we say immune cells, that could mean cells that protect our body from pathogens. That's typically what you think of. But our immune system does other things as well. We remove dead and damaged cells like our own cells. Our cells don't last forever. We have to constantly replace them. Remember mitosis? So our cells need other cells. Our dead and damaged cells need other cells to take them and recycle them, break them down and recycle them. So basically our immune system can act as like a recycling plant, as a scrap heap. We can break down old red blood cells, use it for parts, use the protein, use the iron, use the lipids for, and then recycle it. So we don't have to get new nutrients necessarily. Leukocytes also help get rid of abnormal cells. You can read this as cancerous cells. Now, I wish that our immune systems could always get rid of cancer, but that's obviously not the case. People still get cancer, but it is still possible for our own immune systems to eliminate cancers that may develop. What cancer means is cells, our own cells that have gone awry, that are undergoing mitosis more than they should. So, there are 5 basic types of leukocytes. There's actually many more and many more subtypes, but here are 5 basic types of leukocytes. There's neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, monocytes, and lymphocytes. We'll go through each one by one here in a second. What you should know in general is that these leukocytes are larger than erythrocytes. Look at the comparison between, in this first picture, here is a neutrophil, one type of leukocyte, and then the erythrocyte next to it. Significantly bigger. They have nuclei, that's a big difference compared to erythrocytes. What's interesting about these nuclei is that they're often multi-lobed. So it's not just one nice round nucleus, it could be a nucleus with 2 lobes. So it's still one nucleus, one continuous piece, but it's kind of separated into 2 parts. Or it could be separated into 3 parts, or maybe even more. It can get pretty interesting. The reason for having these misshapen or multi-lobed nuclei is so that these cells, these leukocytes, white blood cells, can squeeze through into or out of blood vessels. The word for squeezing through into or out of a blood vessel, the word for that is extravasate. Extravasate. It's important that leukocytes, they start in the bloodstream and then they can squeeze into a tissue that, for example, might have an infection. Let me attempt to draw a blood vessel. So let's say here is the lining of a blood vessel. Let's say there's an infection over here with bacteria that's in the interstitial fluid of a tissue. You have your white blood cell over here, your leukocyte, and it needs to squeeze through in between those cells of the blood vessels. That's what extravasation is. And having a multi-lobe nucleus allows it to squeeze through better. So the first type that we're going over, neutrophils, they're called that because when you stain them with the dye that we stain them with, they have these granules, these little dots inside of the cell. They have these granules that stain lightly, neutrally. Phil means to love. So there's these cells that stain with a dye that that stains neutral. It's a neutral loving dye. That's how the name neutrophil came about. So neutrophils, the way they look, I'm going to attempt to draw one on the side here. They have a multi-lobe nucleus. And they have lightly staining granules, really faint. Granules, in this case, are clusters of chemicals stored in the cytosol of these cells. And these chemicals, in this case, are used for killing bacteria. So these cells, neutrophils, can release chemicals to kill bacteria. Pretty handy. On top of being granulocytic, they have their cells that have granules, they are also phagocytic. If you remember what that word means, it means to eat. It's a cell that eats other things. And it can eat things by engulfing them. If you're a cell that looks like this and there's a bacterium out here, it can wrap itself around that thing and form a vesicle that it can then digest with the help of a lysosome. Look back at chapter 4 or 5 when we first talked about this. It's a 3. One of the earlier chapters when we talked about phagocytosis, a special form of endocytosis. So those are neutrophils. They respond to bacterial infection. Bacteria, if you're unfamiliar, are living things, and they're really, really, really tiny, smaller than our own cells, and they can sometimes cause problems. Some bacteria are good, some bacteria are bad, some harm us. And these are the ones we want neutrophils to attack. And so here's a neutrophil, and here's my very simplified drawing of a neutrophil. Eosinophils are called eosinophils because they stain well with a dye called eosin. It allows the granules of this cell to stain a pink color. So let me attempt to draw the cell over here on the side. It does have a multi-lobe nucleus, typically bilobed, and the granules stain pink. That's an eosinophil. Eosinophils have a role against parasites and in allergic reactions, but we'll focus on the parasite part right now. These granules that you find in eosinophils, when they get released, they can attack things like parasites. So rather than attacking a single-celled bacterium, they can attack a larger, often multicellular parasite that may have invaded your body. So they are granulocytic. They are cells with these chemical granules that release a toxin to destroy parasites. And because of that, we can also call it cytotoxic. They are toxic to other cells when they release these chemicals. Granulocytic, they have chemicals in them, then they appear as little dots. They're cytotoxic, they release chemicals to kill other cells, like parasites. Multi-lobe nucleus, like I said. If you have a higher than normal amount of eosinophils, that could be a sign that you have a parasitic infection. It could be a sign that you're having an allergic reaction, or in some cases, some drugs elevate the levels of eosinophils in your body. That's termed as eosinophilia. I should have mentioned them previously with neutrophils. If you have an elevated level of neutrophils, that's a sign of bacterial infection because you need more of them to fight off bacteria. So pictured here on the right is more eosinophils than normal. The ones that I'm circling here are eosinophils. The other ones here, see how much lighter the granules are? These are neutrophils. While eosinophils are here. So that's our second type. Eosinophils are not phagocytic. They don't eat up things. They release chemicals to kill things. Our third leukocyte are basophils. I know we've already gone over a basophil. We saw basophils in the anterior pituitary, and basophils stain dark with a basic dye. These are basophils, completely unrelated, except that they also stain dark with a basic dye. That's why they're called basophils. They stain really dark. Take a look at this cell right here. Let me attempt to draw it here. It does have a nucleus. It is multi-lobe, but honestly, it's hard to see because the granules are so dark and they kind of cover it up. So the granules stain very dark, hard to see the nucleus at all. But you can see how punctate, how dot-like the granules are packed inside. So it's not just like an even circle, it's very dotty on the inside. So it is granulocytic. What chemicals does it have? It has several chemicals, two of which I'd like you to know. One of them is called histamine. Maybe you've heard of histamine before when you have an allergic reaction, or if you have seasonal allergies, for instance, you buy some over-the-counter drugs called antihistamines. You take a drug to counteract the effects of histamines. Histamines can cause an allergic reaction. The way they do that, one of the things that happens when you have allergies is that you get your blood vessels to open up. You get vasodilation. The size of your blood vessels gets bigger, you get more blood flow, you get more swelling, you get more edema. It's like, let's say your nose gets more swelling, it's going to be hard to breathe and your nose gets stuffy. Or if you get a scratch by a cat, for instance, on your arm and you're allergic, it can start to swell and puff up. That's what histamine does. In the short term, histamine is useful, but you don't want that for long term. It's going to cause damage to have inflammation for that long. Another chemical released from these granules of basophils is heparin. There's many different names for this chemical, but heparin is an anticoagulant. What that means is it prevents blood clotting. What both of these chemicals do is they increase blood flow to your tissues. So if you have an area of your body where there's an infection, you want to get increased blood flow. And overall, increased blood flow to a tissue in response to damage, that's what inflammation is. Like I previously mentioned, inflammation can be useful. If you actually have damage to your cells, inflammation tells your body this area needs to be repaired. What an allergic reaction is, that's when your body thinks there's a harmful thing damaging your body, but it's actually not doing anything. It's a false alarm. That's why allergies are so annoying, because they're not actually helping you, they're just causing unnecessary problems. So allergies are your immune system doing too much when it shouldn't. Just an unfortunate side effect for some people. So far, the leukocytes that we've seen all have granules. Neutrophils have really light staining granules. Eosinophils have pink staining granules. And basophils have very dark staining granules. The other two don't have granules at all, so they are not granulocytic. And the way they defend our body, they do it differently. This fourth one is called a monocyte. Monocytes are large leukocytes. They eat up other things, so they are phagocytic, but they don't release many chemicals, so they're not granulocytic. My simplified drawing, if I draw it here on the right, to mimic what we see over here. Fairly large cell, let me do that again. Fairly large cell, and the nucleus is kind of kidney shaped. There's a small distinction between a bilobe nucleus and a kidney-shaped nucleus. Kidney-shaped nucleus is a bit bigger. So here's our monocyte. Monocytes, when they migrate into blood, into tissues, infected tissues, they develop into macrophages. So monocytes and macrophages, they're one and the same. You start out as a monocyte, you differentiate into a macrophage, and they look the same. And macrophage, macro, it's big, phage, it eats things. So both macrophages and neutrophils, they eat things. They help defend your body by eating up bacteria and viruses and whatever else they need to eat up. Nucleus, like I said, is kidney shaped, or it's a large oval shape. You might see some light pink purple particles in the cytoplasm, in the cytosol, but it does not have granules. It is agranular. Our fifth type of leukocyte is the lymphocyte. We haven't talked about the lymphatic system yet, but the lymphocyte is found predominantly within the lymphatic system, as well as your blood. So we'll talk about the lymphatic system later. But by being part of the lymphatic system, and one of the major functions of the lymphatic system is to filter your blood. Not filter your blood like your kidneys do. Your kidneys filter your blood like almost like a drain catch. Your lymphocytes filter your blood by grabbing pathogens, things that may harm you out of your blood. So there are basically checkpoints around your body. That's what your lymphatic system is. One thing it acts as. There are checkpoints in your lymphatic system where it can take what's in your blood and look through it for anything that might be harmful. Lymphocytes are like the TSA of your, I guess all these immune cells are, but it kind of acts like the TSA of your blood vessels. They do not have granules. What they look like, if you take a look up here, very basic. It's just a nice round cell with a nice large round nucleus. Pretty basic looking. There are actually several types of lymphocytes. We'll talk about a couple of the different types when we get to the lymphatic system, but we'll get to that later. Overall, what can they do? They have varied functions. Some of them can help act like generals of the immune system. They can coordinate an immune response by releasing chemicals and telling other cells what to do. Some of them can produce antibodies. Antibodies are these proteins that can bind onto pathogens and help basically tag them for destruction or prevent them from doing further harm. They can also, some lymphocytes can also kill infected cells. You know how like if one of your friends gets infected by a zombie, if the zombie bites one of your friends and they haven't turned yet, what should you do? You should kill your friend, because they're no longer your friend. They're a zombie. You kill them before they become a zombie. If one of our cells gets infected with a virus, it's too late. That cell is virus infected and it will just keep spewing out viruses unless you kill it. So you should kill your own virus infected cells. You have lymphocytes that can do that. So as you can see, there's a lot of different things that lymphocytes can do. Pictured here on the right is an example. It's showing histology of lymphocytic leukemia. Leukemia is cancer of lymphocytes in the bone marrow, and you produce an excess, irregular amount of lymphocytes. You can see the large nuclei in these cells. You should not have this many lymphocytes in your blood normally. Remember, lymphocytes and leukocytes as a whole only take up a very small proportion of your blood, up 1% or less. So seeing this many in this small of a sample is concerning. This is an example of someone who has leukemia. Back to our bone marrow, our red bone marrow. Recall that we have these cells called megakaryocytes. They're not the stem cells. Everything else that you see here, that I'm circling here in red in the histology, everything else that you see here, these are blood stem cells. But these really large cells that I'm circling in green, these are megakaryocytes. Megakaryocytes are giant cells in the red bone marrow, and they continuously grow and shed. When they shed their membrane, you can see that shedding going on here where I'm drawing my arrows. Those shed pieces of membrane, those are platelets. So platelets are just fragments of phospholipid bilayer membrane. So there's phospholipids, proteins, and other stuff on it. And these platelets are just released into the bloodstream and circulate. So platelets are just fragments, they're really tiny. If we compare that to a red blood cell, here is a standard erythrocyte. Whoops, let me do that better. Here's a standard erythrocyte. A platelet would just be a small, tiny fragment compared to an erythrocyte because they're just fragments of cells. When you look at them under the microscope, sometimes you might think that's, oh, it's just debris, but those are actually platelets. They're really, really small. How they work, if you take a look at this animation over here on the bottom left, they're always circulating in your blood, and if there's a damaged blood vessel, so you can see there's a damaged part of a blood vessel here, there's collagen that's exposed. We'll learn that there's collagen found in the connective tissue of blood vessels. So there's exposed collagen. When the platelets when they touch exposed collagen, they become very spiky and sticky. Here, take a look at the top right. An inactive platelet is nice and smooth, while an active platelet is sticky and spiky. And when it's sticky and spiky, the platelets stick to each other. So one platelet sticks to that, one platelet sticks, then another one does, and another one does into that damaged area, and you're creating what's called a platelet plug. This isn't quite a clot yet. Clotting, this is the beginning of the clotting process, but this is called a platelet plug. You'll learn more about the process when you get to physiology. We're not going to get to that detail. So they're the quick answer, the quick stopgap for when you're losing blood from a blood vessel. You're trying to prevent loss of blood. You're trying to maintain hemostasis. When you look at the histology, bottom right, it's those tiny little specks. Those are platelets compared to erythrocytes next to them. Oh, and what we'll see, it's not too far. Like I said, platelets attached to the collagen fibers. That's what they're showing here in this animation. And eventually, through the clotting process, will form a clot and give a chance for that blood vessel to heal, and then the clot will go away. Platelets start the process of this clotting and healing. So, as I've mentioned, erythrocytes are the delivery vehicles of our blood. They deliver oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. So you deliver oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide as well and wastes. Your leukocytes are your emergency vehicles. They can phagocytose bacteria, they can release chemicals, they can coordinate attacks, they can kill your own infected cells. And then platelets patch things up. If there's damage to a blood vessel, it makes sure you don't lose all your blood. We also mentioned 3 different types of anemia. Sometimes cells are shaped like this, or like this, or like this. That's sickle cell anemia. Sometimes cells are larger than normal and oval and pale in the middle. That is macrocytic hypochromic. Sickle cell is genetic. Macrocytic hypochromic is caused by vitamin B12 deficiency, Big Mac. And then microcytic hypochromic, smaller than normal cells, is caused by iron deficiency, iron mic. All right, those are the cells that I would like you to know, what they look like under the microscope, why they're shaped the way they are, and what consequences that leads to. I hope that was clear. If it's not, please let me know and I'll help clarify it. Let me know if you have any questions, and yeah, I'll see you in the next chapter. Thanks. Talk to you later.